Stated that he'll be introducing a text amendment ordinance regarding modifying height restrictions on telecommunications towers in the light industrial and PBD zoning district. That's the only change I had. Are there any other changes?
No, I remember that.
Yep.
That's an important one, really.
Any other changes?
I move to adopt the minutes from January 7th, 2021.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have a closed session statement. The town council met in closed session on Thursday, January 21, 2021 at 6:45 p.m. at the Liberty Building, 107 North Liberty Street, second floor meeting room to discuss personnel. In accordance with the Maryland Open Meetings Act, all 5 members of the town council voted to close the session. The authority to close the session is found in section 3-305 of the general provisions article. The town council discussed the following topics: personnel, interviewed a candidate for board/commission positions. Actions, no actions were taken. The following members and staff were present: Timothy E. McCluskey, President; Steve Klein, Vice President; Robert R. Hardy, Jr., Jeffrey D. Keel, and Shelby Anania, members; Steve Walls, Town Manager, and a candidate for board and commission positions. The meeting adjourned at 7 o'clock p.m. Moving next, we're going to go into Citizens Forum. Carolyn, will you read the announcement?
Welcome to this meeting of the Centerville Town Council. This is a public meeting and we welcome your participation. By attending, you acknowledge that this session is recorded and aired live on QACTV 7. During the meeting, we ask that you turn your cell phones off and hold personal conversations outside the meeting room. The scheduled agenda is available on the information table just outside. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The Town Council respects and appreciates your desire and right to convey your message freely, and in keeping with the dignity of proceedings, we ask that all views be expressed in a respectful and civil manner. Comments longer than 3 minutes should be submitted in writing. If questions are a part of your comments, we'll refer those to the appropriate individual. Thank you.
Do we have any citizens that are interested in making a comment? Please come forward. Get 3 minutes. We'll do our best to answer questions if you do. Any email? All right, hearing none, we're going to move on. Next, we have appearances. Jennifer Moore, Director, Queen Anne's County Historical Society. Good evening. Thank you for coming.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jennifer. Good to see you again.
Is that close enough?
Yeah, you're fine.
Is that loud enough? Okay. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I sent forward a small list of things, and I know we're limited in time, so I'll just highlight them by a few sentences each, and then if you have any questions that you'd like to forward after we're finished, then I'll go into any more detail that you like. The purpose of coming before you is to let you know basically what we've been up to for the past year. It's been a big down year for everyone. However, it's actually been an enormous opportunity for us to do things and to find new ways to do things with the Historical Society. We are building membership. We are building the board of directors. We now have a diverse team, ages, backgrounds, cultural sensitivity issues that we're dealing with regard to making sure that we're working with all parts of the county. We have a new member that might be coming on our board soon that we're very happy about, which is part of the school system, and he's very excited about some youth programs, so those are things we're going to talk about tonight. One of the things that we've done recently, we've been able to take care of some restoration and maintenance work at Tucker House. If you haven't been back there, if you take a chance to walk back there, you'll notice that the back section's been completely repainted. We were also able to get 2 new small roof projects finished on each of Wright's Chance and Tucker House. That was afforded to us by an MHT grant. When we got that grant to do the HVAC project at Tucker House, COVID came about, and they were able to turn some of the unspent funds of those existing grants to allow the organizations to use them for operations and maintenance, which was a gift we couldn't have come at a better time. So we took that money and utilized the rest of it to restore the back of Tucker House and to finish off the new roofs, which were desperately needed in those 2 areas. We are working on a facade grant to turn into the town of Centerville. We have the rest of Tucker House to work with, and we also have donations coming in. We've had people call us in the past couple of months who've heard about the project and seen the project happen and are interested in helping us finish the rest of Tucker House. So we're excited for the spring to show up so we can start working on what the next phase of restoring Tucker House will be. We had a facade grant from the town just a few years ago for Wright's Chance, and we're going to be working in that yard this spring as well. This year we applied to the Midshore Community Foundation for a project for outdoor space, and we're hoping to partner with the Queen Anne's County Library to turn Wright's Chance into more of a community center for genealogy And have you seen the Talbot County, Maryland room before in the library? When you walk in, it's a beautiful glassed-in room in the back whole quarter of the building, and it is immaculate. It's kept by professionals there. You basically have to ask permission to get things, and we'd like to see that one of our buildings be turned into something very similar to that. We learned in our house tour process, I think in 2019, with a couple hundred people coming through the house, a lot of them didn't even know it was not a residence. They didn't know it was a museum. We have a lot of new people who moved to the county who we want to make sure they know the houses exist and that they're there for their use and their enjoyment. And having Wright's Chance turned into something that we can maybe partner with the library would give people an opportunity to have a place to go. We want to redo the backyard and give an outdoor space. Right now the library is not, you can't go in, so now you can get your library books and very possibly go to our backyard, which is a fence away. So we're looking at projects like that to do some outdoor space to make sure we're taking the biggest benefit for being a neighbor to the library. Our biggest event that we have coming up, for the first time in our history, we were awarded the Maryland Humanities Smithsonian Museum on Main Street Award. And that award means that we are one of 5 organizations within the county or within the state who will have the pleasure of having a professional Smithsonian exhibit in the county. That will come to us in June and July of 2021. And we're currently starting to work on the committees and the fundraising for that opportunity. We are partnering with Kennard. That large, beautiful classroom they have on the one side is perfect space for this exhibit to be there all in one place and have enough room for people to move around successfully.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
when you say Kennard, you mean the African American?
Yes, the Heritage Center.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Clay Washington is my
Yes.
contact, and we're working together to get our 2 boards together to talk about what it's going to take to roll that out.
Excellent, thank you.
We have 3 major responsibilities, as I see it, with the Smithsonian exhibit and part of their purpose. They bring these museum exhibits to rural communities because we may not have the same opportunity to get to Washington, D.C. to see some of these in our lifetime. So one is that they're bringing it to a rural community, which we qualify for. The second is to make sure that we are taking some responsibility to raise funds to offer transportation for every corner of this county. So whether if you live in the northernmost part of Crumpton or the longest road out of Route 8, that at some point there's a bus available to you or public transportation so that you can come see the exhibit. So that's a big deal for this exhibit to be here and for us to take responsibility for that. So when asking for funds, those are some of the things we're going to be looking into, is transportation during the course of the exhibit. The benefit is we have 6 weeks with this exhibit, so there's plenty of time to hopefully get to each corner of the county and offer people an opportunity to come into town and see it. The main exhibit is going to be at Kennard, and then we have a responsibility to have a local exhibit about the democratic process in Queen Anne's County. And forgive me, the name of the exhibit is Voices and Votes, the democratic process. So there's going to be the Smithsonian exhibit at Kennard Heritage Center, and then we're going to host the local exhibit at Wright's Chance and Tucker House. So we're hoping to be able to offer the town of Centerville to folks who come and visit, that they'll be coming to Kennard and seeing Kennard for the first time, very possibly. They'll be coming to Wright's Chance and Tucker House, maybe for the first time, and that they'll be able to enjoy all the things that Centerville has to offer, our downtown space, the restaurants, other historic sites. We'll be publicizing for maybe some ways to spend the day here, not just come in for the exhibit and go home. And Kent County recently did this exhibit in the past 2 years, and Maryland Humanities cannot speak more highly of how Kent County did theirs. So we're fortunate enough to have mentors from Kent County who are going to come in and help us plan this out. So we're lucky to have our neighbors to the north to come in and help us do this, hopefully as successfully as they did. So part of the process of coming here this evening is also to let you know that we're going to be sending in a request for a donation, if you would, and some of those things that I just talked about will be part of that process that we put that money towards. We have fees to pay for Kennard to make sure that they can go without that space for 6 weeks. We have transportation to make sure that we can offer the county residents an opportunity to come see the exhibit. And then we also have the exhibits themselves to build. And then once we finish with the exhibits here in Centerville, we'll make sure that they travel around the county throughout the next year or two, and that the schools see them, that local businesses have them in their windows, and that they don't just shoved in a closet someplace and not used again. We just got finished with an election. So hopefully we have 4 years, 3 years, 2 years in between elections and in different parts of our state for different reasons, that if part of the democratic process is to make sure people are getting an opportunity to register to vote, to understand what their voices are, that we can use the projects through this Voices and Votes exhibit to show people how to get more involved. If they don't know that these meetings are something that they can publicly attend, they would know when we finish our meetings. So those are the kind of opportunities we want to supply as a result of having this exhibit come in. So. The last is just to go over some projects. We are going to be partnering with Kent County Historical Society to apply for funds to do a full digitization of their library and ours. And that's where the library and using rights chance is coming in. We'd like to make sure that anyone in the county can access whatever we have in our libraries to do their work from home if they need to. We get calls regularly from out of the state for people who used to live here or have family here, and this would help us do that. The other is the Queen Anne's County, hopefully will be a partnership with the library and Rights Chance. And then we have a few folks who are more than happy to help us, who specialize in some genealogy research in the county, who are going to help us spearhead a full genealogy project to build our genealogy library and to offer some ways for the society to earn some income and for folks to be able to do some full research on their families with professional assistance. So those are the projects we have in place. The community events that we wanted to share with you that we have an interest in this year is, one, we have 2 beautiful lawns in this downtown area. Rights Chance has a huge yard in the back, and so does Tucker House with a full brick patio. We have highly underutilized those, so we'd like to encourage that in the future, if we have locals who'd like to use them for things, it's also part of income for us, that we might be able to spruce up these yards to make sure that they're worthy of events that we can hold in those spaces, including maybe some fun movies in the summer. So maybe there's some community ways that we can donate some of that time as well. For the town square, I'm also involved in the town of Centerville Main Street and the market, and we've used the downtown square and Lawyers Row successfully for many events over the past couple of years, often leave it better than we found it. And we had a great time doing that makeshift brunch this year on Lawyers Row. Terrific time. Symphony Village, we almost had to kick out of there. They brought their groups, and every time a table would leave, the next table would show up and take their space, and we had a great time. We'd like to let you know that we will be making an invitation to use that space again to do something like that. We have some events planned that are theme-based, historical theme-based, and we're definitely going to be asking for permission to possibly use Lawyers Row to create some evening spaces, to use the restaurants, and to make it sort of a social thing when it's possible, probable, and safe. And not 32 degrees outside. We also have the opportunity to use the municipal parking lot if we want to do anything, so those will be other opportunities that we'll present to you in case we have ideas. And the last 2 things are demolition permits. I'm part of a small group that works with the Historic Consortium's site, or Historic Site Consortium in the county with Nancy Cook. And one thing we've noticed over the years is that while we get demolition permits from the county office and we voluntarily go redocument those properties before they're demolished for the county record, so if someone has an old home that they would like to see their record updated, we actually go out and redocument those properties and make sure the photographs are on file, that we don't do that for the town of Centerville. So I've, over the years, have seen houses go down and we didn't know they were going down, and we realized they're 2 separate processes. So the county and the town report differently. And we'd like to ask about an ongoing conversation to get notice of properties that are being requested to be demolished or a burn permit, so that we have an opportunity to photograph those for the town record. Even if it's not truly historic in your mind, like an old brick building that was built here in the 1700s, I've been advocating over the years, and it's been successful for us, that every house in this county was somebody's home at one point. So while it may not look historic to you if it's over 50 years old, even if it's not, someday someone might want to come back and look at where their parents lived or their grandparents grew up. It doesn't matter if it's the 1-bedroom apartment above one of the restaurants across the street or the oldest house in this county, that the record should reflect accurately, properly, and as best we can what those houses look like, because they were someone's family. So we just like to ask for an ongoing conversation about getting notices for demo permits so we can show you what we do with the county, and on a volunteer basis do it for the town as well. So that's a request. And the last is just a fun idea. I was going through social media, and I'm a regular traveler to New Orleans, and it occurred to me that there's no Mardi Gras this year, and what they did in true New Orleans spirit was turn the parade around, and houses are being set up as floats so you can walk through versus not having the parades. So once I saw that, I thought the downtown Centerville area decorates so gorgeous for Christmas. that maybe there were some events that happened during the year that if we see our COVID restrictions last well into this year, that maybe we could consider, around the town, that we might turn some of those events on their heads and actually have the houses decorated and do some walking tours. I can send you over pictures so you can see them, but it was just a darling idea. And the town does a lot of walking, and we have a lot of visitors that come in. So either ourselves or with other agencies in town, organizations, we could probably set that up and get that going, just for fun.
Excuse me, I assume you're working with the Legacy Foundation as a partner in a lot of stuff, or will be, okay?
Yeah, when there's a chance, any of the historical sites and the organizations we'll be working with to partner with.
Well, you're talking about this float house idea. I've been talking with a few members of it, and they're thinking of, if possible, who knows, have something in the May, June timeframe, like every weekend have a different event, like maybe a flower mart or something along those lines, whereby we would use, they're proposing or considering, the courthouse square, maybe some of the historic buildings, and it would be a possibility similar to what you have done with the Christmas houses, the
Yes.
tour.
I just talked to Elaine today, and we actually spoke about just that.
Yes.
Yeah, they're specializing in making, Centerville beautiful on all occasions, and that's exactly what we're working to do as well. So in those events, in those cases, we will be partnering with them, yes.
Good. I think that's very good for economic development in our town, because it brings people here. They would use our restaurants. If we can improve other, I'll say, opportunities for businesses like crafts, antique store, those things like you see in other towns here on the Eastern Shore. Thank you.
Okay, we're looking forward to it. When it comes to the request for the Smithsonian event and any donation that the town might be able to make, would you like that in writing at a later date, or would you like to know more about that information now so you might make a decision?
What do you prefer? Do you want to go away with cash now, or would you rather have it at some point when you figure out what your budget looks like?
In hand is always great. However, we're working on the budget right this minute. So to be perfectly frank, I want to make sure I'm giving you the best. I could throw a number out, but that would be just throwing the number out.
Yeah, so why
we're
don't you
working with
come back?
with Kennard to determine how much it would cost to utilize their site,
Yep.
and finishing up a few other things for transportation. So if it's okay, I don't want to undercut or over ask for something. I'd like to give it back to you another
Yeah,
day.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
I think that's fine. And do any council members have any questions?
Have you been coordinating to this point with the Women's Museum, the proposed Women's Museum, or,
We will be.
but you're
We will
not
be.
yet?
Yeah, I speak to Mary Margaret regularly, but we haven't got her involved in this project just yet. Our first meeting will be Wednesday, February 3rd, and at that point, we'll be inviting in those types of organizations, Legacy Foundation, Women's Foundation, Women's Museum, and any other organization locally that would like to be a part of that. So we have to go through a process of, like the Board of Elections. We have probably close to every single name available to us in the county that's going to be invited in to work on this project with us.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
I just want to say thank you for coming out and informing us about all of this. I'm so excited to see this Voices and Votes exhibit. It sounds wonderful, and to see what you guys do with the outdoor space at your locations. It's really exciting. So thank you.
Absolutely. And again, it's going to be for 6 weeks. So June, July
Yeah.
will be hopefully we'll have this place peppered with signs and people going through.
That's wonderful.
There's
Thank
so
you.
much pent up, wanting to get out and
I
do
know.
stuff, that hopefully things will be better, and it'll be so successful for everybody. I mean, I love the Smithsonian, and, having this kind of an opportunity is great. I just had a couple of quick questions.
Yes, sir.
In terms of the demolition permits and whatnot, what if it's somebody that's doing renovations, right? They're going to take they got a historic house, and they're going to bring it down to the studs. Do you guys have any interest in going in and photographing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've had great success with the folks who've been demoing. I think one of the biggest hurdles was, as a historic trust sort of the county, it's important that if we find significant history that we say, hold the brakes for a second, let us just do the homework to find out what's there. But in most cases, a lot of the houses, while they're over 50 years old, it's private property, and there's allowances that we just go in and document the property and leave.
Right.
And more people who are working with us understand that we're just coming in to document and leave.
Yeah.
So there has been less of a pushback and more welcome to come in and do that thing. We also tell them we're documenting for the land records, which is an extremely important part of this history.
Right.
So we're just really grateful that it gets done. Anyone who's doing any major demos can also take their own photographs if they're actually well taken, if they don't want the intrusion. But it would be terrific to go in and take some of those, because some of them are getting either gutted or halfway renovated,
Yeah.
and they will not look the same at all. So
Yeah.
having that property updated. In this county, a lot of the surveys were done in the 70s and 80s, and in some cases were never surveyed at all. So if some of these places go down or change, there was never a photograph of them to begin with.
Yeah.
So even if I'm going around taking photographs around town, like the greenhouse that was taken down right on the hill, we can't take the picture anymore. So that entire landscape has changed just by moving one house. So we want to make sure we get all those photographs done. I had Mr. Gaines as a bus driver, so his shop was right at the bottom of the hill. Had I known what I'd be doing today, I would have taken lots of photographs of
Yeah.
that place a long time ago. So,
Well, thank you so much for coming in. Yeah.
I have a personal question. My neighbor across the street is that house that got floated down the bay in Carmichael?
Yeah.
Have you been, I'm listening, you've been documenting the progress on that?
They have been documenting the progress. That's a private project, private property.
Okay.
We have been in touch with them through email, just
Okay.
interactions. And then we're also posting any pictures that we get from the contractors who are on the property.
That is
So-
one fantastic thing, because I talk to them every now.
Yeah.
And they're almost done.
Yeah, you can imagine they're being bombarded with requests for people to get involved, so we wanted to, with respect to their privacy, they're showing so much of their process that there's going to be a time and a place to do probably more with that, but we're posting things that they post and asking questions and have been in contact when they first moved the house over.
I'm glad you're connected.
Yeah,
How's that?
it's lovely to
Yeah,
see.
just real quickly, our Centerville Police Department turns 125 in the next year. So I think it would be great for you to maybe work with the chief to put together I know he's thinking about some exhibits, so perhaps
That'd be terrific.
cross-pollination
Yeah.
there.
I'll definitely write it down tonight and I'll get in touch with them because it takes planning, so we can start talking about it right now.
You bet.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to move forward with Chesterfield Cemetery Advisory Committee. So this is again an ongoing request that I had asked that we had each board and commission kind of come in and make a presentation. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
If you guys could just introduce yourselves and then I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Good chair.
Make sure this is pulled up, Chief.
Thank you. Now, he said to introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm Nancy Lewis, the recently elected chairperson for the cemetery committee, and I live in Centerville on Belvedere Avenue. You asked for information, so I'm going to give it to you, what we think you would be important for you to know.
Do the mic a little closer, please.
He wants to introduce yourselves first.
I will. We have 7 members. 2 are here with me tonight. Linda Palminteri is our treasurer. Nancy Lane is a long-term member, interested member. We have 1 man on our committee, Mr. Walter Pauls, who is our faithful secretary, and we enjoy having him so much, and we're always looking for others. We also have a new member, Kim Oristan. She's not here tonight, but she's our vice chair. And fortunately, we were able to find, I guess thanks to Steve, we were able to get a brand-new member whom we've not met yet. Her name is Casey Deal, and we're looking forward to meeting her. We also have Joan Dawkins, who has been president or chairman and is home tonight, but is another very interested member, and she's been filling in as the acting chair. Mary Margaret Goodwin, which you all know, is a member as well, and we look forward. She's an active community worker. We meet the second Tuesday of every month. We don't exactly have a place now because of the virus, but we can always find one. We encourage citizens to join us and bring up any concerns that they might have. Our challenge is to support the town council. The cemetery belongs to the town, unlike most cemeteries belong to churches. So this one belongs to the town. We try to maintain it. We'd like to sustain the cemetery. We'd like to see it in perfect condition all the time. There's a fund that takes care of the cemeteries to help us out with fundraising. The fund is in perpetuity, which our parents contributed to many years ago, and other ancestors from Queen Anne's County. We take great pride in the cemetery. As I said, most of us have relatives and certainly good friends there. Our most recent project involved a road that we put through the whole cemetery, all of the old lanes. They've been there many, many, many years. So we were able to get that done with the help of the town council. That road will soon need to be sealed because they told us that after a certain period of time you had to put a sealant on it. It was sealed right after it was put down, but it's going to need it again, and I guess Steve knows when that date is, perhaps, the seal.
Top coat.
The top coat.
Top coat.
Well, we'll have to check in, but it's coming up. It's very soon. It was every 2 years, but I'm not sure, since they put it on when they originally put the cement down or whatever it is, it was sealed right away. We have provided new street signs to assist family members in locating the grave sites, especially for people who live out of town and come to look for their ancestors. Other projects under consideration include a new sign for the front entrance of the cemetery. You'll see one there now, but we'd like to change it. We do put one up for Veterans Day, but we'd like to have another nice one in that place. It's at the bottom of Liberty Street, before you, on your way out of town going toward Dunkin' Donuts. We also would like to put landscaping around the columbarium and also have handicap access to that. Those are projects in the future, but we're ready to start at any time. The last project that we've been thinking a lot about is the repair of old stones that are fallen over and in big disrepair. If any of you would like to see the roadway or the columbarium, I'm sure not all of you are familiar with that, I offer field trips. Now, as a teacher, I took more field trips to Smithsonian and other places, but we're always willing to take a field trip to the cemetery. We can show them the new roadway, the columbarium, etc., or any other thing that you might be interested in. Now, introduce Linda. She's our treasurer.
I'm Linda Palmetieri. I live in Centerville on Hope Road in the Centerville Heights. Been here all of my life, and I've been on the cemetery board. I think this is my 12th year coming up, and we have worked very hard in the past for fundraisers. We had a big fundraiser, silent auction at Docks. We did very well. We always have a project that we try to make the money in order to, do our projects. We had a 5K run. We've had a car show at the high school. We also had a big mail out to all the people that we could reach out to in the county and beyond 2 years ago when we were doing the road. And I said if we could reach $9,000, if we could have done that, we could get that much money, I'd be tickled. Well, we raised close to $15,000. The people were very generous. Of course, a lot of our families are gone. A lot of the stones, as you can tell, are old. There's not any families left, and that's the very sad part. It really is. And we do need some tombstone work done, but we work good as a group. And Tim, we thank you because you have been to some of the meetings and some of the town council in the past, and you all are welcome at any time when we do meet, because we do need the support of the town. Also, Norma has been wonderful to us.
Wonderful.
And Carol Diaz, what's her last name?
Agostino.
She helped us with our brochures that we sent out, and Steve also. So it's meant a lot that we've all worked together. All might not see eye to eye, but we do, we try to work together. And we all have family, especially, I don't care if it's even a good friend anymore, there's people in that cemetery that we do know, and we've lost. And of course, we've lost quite a few even during the COVID. So it's heartbreaking, but we love to have a good cemetery. We've had a lot of people that have commented on the cemetery, how wonderful it looks. And Earl Saylor is wonderful. I don't know what we do without Earl. He is wonderful down there. I always ride through and tell him, and Nancy does too, I know. because
He's got a tough
he just
job in
kind
the
of
summer.
brightens his day when we'll say, Earl, you're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah.
So it means a lot, you know, it really does. And it's not easy to take care of a cemetery. I mean, it's like your own home. It's not easy to take care. But we like to be able maybe to get a line item for the cemetery in your budget somewhere along the line, maybe through the perpetual care that some of our parents have paid way back. And my grandmother was buried there in 1919 with the old flu that we're going through now. She was 27 years old and 8 months pregnant. And so that's how long my family's been there, along with my great-grandparents. So we'd like to see that. Yeah, they all have it. We do. So most everybody's on the committee. And we know you have other projects and all too, but it's, I love to see a cemetery looking good. And I think it does a lot to the people that have lost loved ones, and especially a lot of young ones. We've lost a lot of young people this past year. And,
Unfortunately.
And it's good to see that they can go in there and you know, feel like they can pray at peace and be with their loved ones. So, but we do thank you all and appreciate everything that you do.
Okay.
Nancy Lane.
I'm Nancy Lane, and I've been on this committee 8 years. I've been in charge with a lot of things to do. Before the columbarium was put up, I went around and measured other ones, Talbot County, Kent County, Queens County. John Elfenbein and I are good friends, and I've talked to him, and I got prices and where they got theirs at Kent Island. The road, the signs that tell you where to turn in to the different lanes, I more or less ordered them. I picked them up and I paid for them. Because the budget, it's just not there for some projects. And we all wanted to do it. You all approved of the names. And I just took it upon myself, and the guy who owns it, I know him too. So he gave me a little bit of a break.
And the signs are important, I must say.
The signs are very important.
Instead of saying, yeah, go
Yeah.
in, make a right-hand turn, and go down, make another left, instead of saying,
Yeah.
go on sunset or sunrise or whatever. It's
Yep.
really been a blessing to a lot of
Yep.
the older people.
And people from out of town.
Town, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's been the issue, people from out of town.
But I live in Church Hill. And the only reason I live in Church Hill is because I inherited a farm. So, but normally, I have a house in Centerville. If you turn on Peaceful Lane, you go halfway, my family has 5 rows. So when Jim Barton was president, he called me and he said, "You've got a lot of people in here." So I joined. And I've done what I can ever since. If I've gone out there and seen trash, I've picked it up.
We all do that.
We all
do
do it. We all do it. I'm not there every day, but, you know, when I'm there, I pick it up. Because when you get a windstorm, you've got them blowing everywhere, especially these artificial ones.
As artificial flowers do.
They just,
Decay.
they're everywhere.
Dog patrol.
They're everywhere.
I'll get on dog patrol.
One thing, the columbarium, I looked at it the other day. Yes, it is, you're supposed to be handicap accessible, but this one is so flat to the ground. By the time you put concrete around it and around the front, you're right next to the road. So I'm not sure you're gonna need handicap accessible. Because if the concrete goes around it and you've got it in front of it and it's backed up to the road, you know, a wheelchair, and my husband's in a wheelchair now, you can go all the way around it and not hit any bumps or anything. Yeah, that's a big possibility.
Yeah.
So, but that was just one thought. I've enjoyed being and doing what I do. My family goes back to the 1600s. And the farm I live on, I have a cemetery there too. So it's not like I know what to do or how to do it, because I do it all the time. And I see the repairs that have to be done. The ones here in Centerville, the biggest problem is a lot of the families, there is no family. And the stones are over. And we just don't have the money to fix them all. There used to be a guy who worked for the town. I don't remember what his name was now. But I was in the cemetery one day and he came to me and he said, "You got a problem with a stone?" And I said, "Yeah, it's my family." He said, "I'll fix it." I thought, how nice. I don't know what he put under the stone, but he picked it up and put it on top of the bottom. Hasn't moved since then. This has been years ago. So, I mean, but we just can't fix them all.
Yeah.
We just can't do it. The shrubbery around the maintenance building, I did the contract on that. I had somebody I know who does landscaping. He's up near Chestertown, but he's still Queen Anne's County. And I asked him, took him down there, showed him what to do, and we went around and we looked at things, and he gave me the suggestions of what to do, and I didn't want a lot, and it worked, so.
And we've all watered it, kept it going.
Uh-huh.
Some of us are down there a
Yes,
lot.
we
and
do.
watered it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We do have, I've got one problem. Is there a bylaw that says we've got one person in that cemetery? I realize it's a child buried there. And she really, the mother or the grandmother or somebody really goes overboard. I mean, it's very extreme. I was through there at Christmas time and I thought, this is way too much.
True. She has a whole tree.
She had a whole tree, she had reindeer, she had everything under the sun. Is there anything we can do about it?
I'd recommend that you talk with Steve, take that offline and talk with Steve about that.
We'll discuss it at the meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you guys for coming in. Council members have any questions or comments?
Since we're going to be putting together a town budget, you mentioned the handicapped access project. Has that been costed out for the extent of it that possibly we could put something in the budget and then maybe have, you could have, as you suggested, you do go out and ask for funds. It could be a cemetery and then the town could maybe match funds or whatever, but has that been costed?
We've tossed around the fact that we would like a line item from the town so that we
Right.
could plan for things like this. For instance, I know that the budgets go from year to year, but
Right.
the things that we are usually talking about are much more expensive than something that you have to save the money. For instance, if I just took $1,000 every year and you allowed us to keep it for like 5 years, we would have $5,000, then we'd know. Or we would have to count on you to help with the actual expense of building the handicapped or whatever we need.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's important with our older population.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
mean,
For
the
sure.
young lady there mentioned about her husband in the wheelchair. I know my wife has bad knees, and just going over a curb is difficult.
Yeah, right.
So I would,
But we've always wanted a line item so we could save money for things, but for the road was like $50,000. It would take us many years.
Right.
But if we had to spend it every year, it's not much of there would be things we could buy or save for, but we just can't, for something like the cemetery, they become expensive. Just repair of one stone but we would save up and maybe get 2 stones repaired or something like that. But yes, we could work on getting a budget for the handicap.
I think that would, I
Yeah,
know-
so we, over the past couple of years, we've started to look at these line items. And, carry over from year to
Yeah,
year,
that's
and I
the
think that
point.
that's absolutely something we want to put in the budget this year.
That what Michael said last meeting for the Park Advisory
Yes.
Board? So it's not that it would be unique working with you like that is what I'm saying. I have learned.
Yeah.
So, no, I appreciate it, and I'm just saying that you highlighted that as an important project.
It's important.
And I think we need to recognize that and maybe plan for it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. right.
Okay, thank
The
you.
roads have been a blessing, the roads, the new roads
Yeah.
have been a blessing.
Oh, yes, I know.
Because they've just been, just like this, and it's terrible if you've been to a funeral and the hearse is going up and it's, I mean, it's an awful thing to say, but it really
Yeah.
is. So it's needed it for a long, long time, so it's.
That took a while to get that done, but
Yes,
it
it
does
did.
look so much
When we
nicer
got,
now.
we raised that money, which I was so, so pleased, and people were really good, so that was great.
And I know a lot of my neighbors in Symphony Village walk Millstream Trail, and I walked it recently, and I came across the back door to the cemetery, and it was easy to walk in there, and it's very peaceful and calming.
Beautiful.
And so, I thank you.
Toby, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you guys for all of your dedication. I mean, it's really wonderful. I also live on Belvedere Avenue and walk the trail there and through the cemetery on a weekly basis. And having the signs are beautiful and the paved roads are wonderful, and everything you guys do is really, really appreciated. And I'd love to come to one of your meetings when you guys start having them, if you're doing them over Zoom or however you're doing it, just to help be a part of it.
Yeah, we
'cause
welcome
I
anyone.
visit it all the time.
Anytime, anyone, anytime.
I think you have all our addresses at the town of Centerville.org, so.
Yep.
If you don't, I'm sure Carolyn or Norma or Betty Jean can give
Well, we
them to you.
thank you all for everything in the past. And
Yeah.
You guys have any
in the
other
future,
questions?
so-
Anything you
I
wanna
do. Does the Centerville, or does the cemetery have a 5-year budget plan for some of these things? So it's not kind of an ad hoc, we want to fix some tombstones and here's what it's going to cost, but rather sort of a more deliberative approach where you say, all right, here's all the things that we want to get done and here's the 10-year budget plan to get them done? Do you have something like that?
We had a long-term time to get the roadway, but we've never had enough money to have a long-term budget. We've always had to count on coming.
Right, and I'm not suggesting, speaking for one person, it would help me to know kind of where we're going, right? If you could see that budget, whether you get the money is not withstanding, I guess, but it would just be nice to see what you've got in mind, what needs to be done. I'm curious,
Yeah, we can
We
do
can
that.
do
We
that.
can do that.
We
yeah.
just never had any
Yeah.
money until the fundraiser, so it didn't seem very, very important at the time to make a 10-year budget when we were dealing with $1,000.
so how much, do you know how much the road cost?
It was
50,000.
50,000.
Okay, all right.
50,000, and we
this is
raised 15, and we had some little bit of extra, so we got to pay, we were blessed, we were.
We were.
Like I say, I was striving for I thought, well, 8,000 or 9,000, and
Sure.
people came through, so we were really blessed, yes.
So I feel pretty strongly, this is the town's property, right?
Yes, it is.
And it is the town's requirement to take care of these places. And, the notion that it takes, years and years of effort to pay for a $50,000 road, to me,
It did.
is, let's solve that problem.
Well, it
Let's get you
surely
the
needed
funds.
it, it wasn't any time too soon.
I sled it
The
on.
road's
as
in,
a
it's the
child.
next 50,000, that's
What I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the road, I'm talking about,
It's on Belvedere,
I
and she used to
sled it
sled on it, so she knows.
That road
that's
was
Steve
the
Clark.
original road.
so thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you all.
You have anything to add?
I see, like, instead of a 10-year, how about coming out with a 1, 3, and a 5-year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
we'll
would
do
be
that,
more
yeah.
practical because it's more practical instead of a 10-year. Or you can come up with a 1, 3, 5, and a 10-year, whatever. So whatever you want to do in those 1, 3, or 5 years should be easier to accomplish.
Thank you.
This is a little different than what you've heard in past years about budget
Oh, my
stuff,
gosh.
so
Yeah,
take
we've
that
got
to
a lot
heart.
done.
And
We've
okay.
got a lot done.
The
so.
line item is the big deal for
Yep.
us because that's the way we can plan and we know the important and prioritize.
And I want to thank you all too for doing it. And I'm going to take a tour because guess what? I ride past that thing a lot in a fire truck or in
No, I know
in my
you do,
personal
yeah.
car. Like I live on the other side of town, so I go past it all the time. So
Well, take
I-
a turn in there.
I don't know much about it.
Take a turn. We'll always give
Yep.
Visit all the roads, visit all the roads,
Make sure I get a
Jeff.
hold of Linda and make sure I
Yeah, Jeff.
schedule a
I'll
tour.
guide you right through there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
so much.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a public hearing that we're actually going to be getting to. I'm going to open up the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Public hearing, Centerville Town Council Resolution 13-2020, Councilmember Vacancies, January 21st, 2021. Subject of this hearing is a resolution of the Town Council of Centerville for the purpose of amending the town charter to revise the process for filling vacancies on the council and matters generally related thereto. I have my speech here, and it says, I will now provide background on Resolution 13-2020. We've got our town attorney here, and I figured maybe I'd have you come up, Sharon, and just give a little quick background, if you could, on the reasoning for this.
So as we were moving through the election process last year, and we ran into a situation where it was the potential to have a special election very close to the general election, and we realized that some people, if that happened, wouldn't be eligible if they didn't get elected in the special election. They wouldn't have time to get the paperwork in order to participate in the general election. So we looked at the charter to try to solve that issue and came up with the resolution that's before you today, and that would enable an appointment if the time period is short, because there's really not time to do the special election and a general election. So that's if there's 180 days, there would be an appointment that the council would make for an open position. And if it is more than 180 days, that's when you would go ahead and, if the general election is less than 180 days, then it could be filled at the general election, but if it's not, then you could do the special election.
Okay. You feel that this cleans that up and
I
gets
think
rid
it
of that
does.
kind of loophole in that? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I will now call upon Carolyn Brinkley, Town Clerk, to present evidence of the published notice of this hearing.
Certificate of publication, the State of Maryland, County of Queen Anne's. This is to certify that the annex legal advertisement has been published in the Bay Times Record Observer, 12/25/20.
Okay. We will now first hear from all those in favor of proposed resolution 13-2020 and then hear from those opposed. Please keep all comments to 3 minutes. You are welcome to provide written testimony to the town council as well. I'm going to acknowledge that we've already had the public comment guidelines. We will now hear from all those in favor of proposed resolution 13-2020. Please come forward. Let the record show that there's nobody who decided to talk in favor of proposed resolution 13-2020. We will now hear from all those opposing proposed resolution 13-2020. Please come forward. Let the record show that there was no one opposed to proposed resolution 13-2020. The Centerville Town Council will consider all comments presented this evening before making a final decision regarding proposed resolution 13-2020. Do I hear a motion to adjourn this hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I now declare this hearing adjourned. All right, next we're going to move into old business, which is resolution 13-2020, charter amendment, council members vacancy for consideration. I'm going to read just the top of it. Town Council of Centerville, resolution 13-2020, a resolution of the Town Council of Centerville for the purpose of amending the town charter to revise the process for filling vacancies on the council and matters generally related thereto. We did just hear Sharon explain to us the reasoning for this and the updated language. Is there any discussion, or is there a motion to approve it?
Motion to approve resolution 13-2020.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution 13-2020, which is a charter amendment for council member vacancies. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next, we have ordinance 11-2020, which is a text amendment to museums in the R2 zoning district. So this would be what, considered to be the second reading? Is that right? Or is it just kind of an extra reading?
This actually is you've already had a first and a second.
Okay, so at our last council meeting, there were some concerns about where it was going to be located. Would it be in R2? The standards that might apply in terms of buffer yard. So the Planning Commission got to see it last night, and in a further discussion, Planning Commission recommendation was that we kind of separated out. We separated out that they would like to see this only be in R3, and it be a special exception in R3. And they also felt that one of the points, Steve, that you had brought up, which was having a buffer yard for this particular use, this type of an institutional use, it's not required for other institutional uses. So what their recommendation was that if you are going to build a church or you are going to have an institutional use or a school in a residential zone, right now you don't need to have a buffer yard. So their recommendation is that all of those are imposing on the residential character, and therefore there should be some type of buffer yard requirements. So what their recommendation is that they would like to come up with and draft an ordinance to require buffer yards, some type of buffer yard for all single-family residential uses in a residential zone, such as this or others, and have that one go through the process just before the special exception. So they can kind of go parallel as long as the buffer yard one goes first. So as it stands today, this ordinance 11-2020, my recommendation would be that we table it. And so I'd make a motion to table this until such time that we have another ordinance in front of it to discuss buffer yards for institutional and other non-residential uses in the residential zones.
Did you make that motion?
So I made that motion, so the way that ordinances work, let me just finish here if I could.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The way that ordinances work is that, since it's been introduced, the council needs to make some action on it. It either needs to be denied, it needs to be approved within a certain period of time, I think it's 60 days, or it needs to be tabled to some point in the future. And so the purpose for tonight is to table it, so that it's not going away, it is going to be different, but it'll be modified. I'm sorry.
You just mentioned buffer yards. I thought also you said the planning commission talked about the R2, R3, or...
Yeah, so that'd be a separate ordinance.
No, that's okay. I'm just, I didn't want it was kind of like, okay, is it going away, or...
No, it would be...
We're going to be considering, is what I'm hearing, the recommendations of the planning commission.
Yeah, so the motion I just made is to table this for now until the other ordinance would be coming up. Do we have a second on it, and then we can further discuss?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a second. So basically what would happen is their recommendation for museums would be only in R3, right? And only as a special exception.
Right.
However, they also want to see these buffer yard standards for all these types of institutional uses. And they want to make sure that that gets done first, so that that's in the code, right?
And then we make
prior to, because that way they can impose standards on a museum.
It's called getting it in order of appropriate procedure to do it. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Is there anybody else have any discussion, comments, questions?
I would just say for folks that maybe haven't been involved in Centerville's zoning or planning before they got elected to this council, that the special exception requires anybody that wants to build this museum in R3 to come before the zoning board of appeals and basically, submit a plan to the zoning board of appeals and get that plan approved. And I think it's worth noting, in talking and attending the planning commission meeting last night and talking to the town's planner, Chris Jakubiak, that once I would encourage folks to look at the zoning rules for R2 and R3, because there are a lot of things you can do in the R2 and the R3 by special exception right now. I mean, a lot of us live in the R2, R3, I think most of us, and you can have a place of worship, you can have a school without a special exception as long as they meet the site plan requirements, but there are a host of things that you can do, and I just would urge people to look at that, keeping in mind that we're adding another one of those things now that you could do to a residential neighborhood. And I think, as Chris Jakubiak mentioned at the Planning Commission meeting last night, I think it bears repeating here, that you have to assume, a museum could be anything, or anybody's interpretation of what a museum is. So it doesn't have to be things that we all find agreeable. And I don't think, in fact, I feel pretty strongly that the sort of public good or public welfare, or it's not going to be not going to be a way for the zoning board of appeals to deny these things if they're allowed to meet all the other site requirements. That might not have been the clearest explanation in the world, but I think this deserves a lot of consideration. And I think we've got to talk a little bit about, I think mixed use and the Planning Commission has been on a long-term mission to have more mixed use in the residential areas, but I think we have to have sort of eyes wide open about how much of this stuff, private clubs, nursing homes, daycare centers, all of that is doable in the R2 right now, and we're potentially adding one more. So I'm not trying to cloud anybody's judgment, I just think the full scope of this needs to be thought about. So thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, I think Steve delineated those comments in an email, correct? Yesterday. Both you and Steve had an email documenting those concerns.
Yep.
So I'd just like to read it into the record that both Steve and Tim has provided their written discussion beside the verbal discussion.
Okay.
For the record, that's all. I think it's important.
All right, so we have a motion to table this ordinance until such time that a
I
buffer
make a
yard.
motion to table this till further.
We already have that. I'm just repeating that.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm just repeating it. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. 2021 fireworks?
Well, I just want to go back for once. I just want to confirm that you want the February, second meeting in February public hearing canceled at this point,
That's
correct?
correct. Yep.
Okay.
And just so the council knows, I have always requested that the fireworks get on the agenda in early January, and that we have it on the agenda until the fireworks go off. Not that we have to discuss it every time if there's no updates, but I just like to have it on there as a reminder. Any updates?
No updates.
Okay.
Until the fireworks literally go off?
Okay. And then once it's done, then we talk about the fireworks. Next, we have old business, Centerville Police Department LEOP study. Chief?
Briefly, the participating governmental unit entry application has been sent to the Maryland State Retirement Agency yesterday. Once approved, a preliminary evaluation study will be determined by the system's actuary to determine the cost of participation for members of the Centerville Police Department. That's about all I have right now. Continue to keep the members of the council updated as I hear back from the state. They've been very communicative so far, so that's encouraging.
Good. All right, well, you got it in. That's great. Anybody have any questions? We'll have you up here later on.
Thanks.
Next, we're going to move on to new business, bid consideration, electric at wharf boat slips. Who's going to be in charge of this? Kip?
Glad to see you're back on your feet, sir.
Nice to be back. Thank you. As you know, part of the ongoing build out of the Wharf Park as part of the master plan that we had was to get electric and lights and power stations at the slips and on the dock and everything. Much of the work down there has already been paid for by grants. There was a request for proposals, invitation to bid advertised for electricians to come in and do the work to install the electric needed under the dock and install the lights and the power stations. You have before you, we only had 2 qualified bidders that submitted bids. The bids are there in front of you. The staff has reviewed the proposals that were submitted. We're making a staff recommendation for the bid to be awarded to Chuck's Electrical Service for $10,360. And again, as I said, there's grants that's paid for a lot of the stuff that's down there. This will come out of part of a grant for $87,000 through the Department of Natural Resources.
Great. Anybody have any questions? I'm sorry.
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, perfect. There you go.
Make a motion to accept the town memorandum and accept the bid from Chuck's Electrical Service for the Centerville Wharf Park Electric.
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So there's a big difference. So it's a big difference in between both of them. Did you compare both?
Apples to apples?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I can tell you that this isn't the first time that Chuck's has bid and come well under other bidders.
Okay.
I can't explain the difference in the bids or anything, but they are bidding apples to apples.
Okay.
The thing is that in the past, we have talked to the staff at Chuck's, and their feeling is they're a business that is in Centerville, it's based in Centerville, and they want to do right by the town of Centerville. So they bid accordingly, and that's the only thing I can tell you. I know that as far as their bidding process, I can tell you that we are well satisfied with the other jobs that they have bid on and done. They've done work for the town, off and on for a while. They're not the only ones that have done work for the town, but they have been the most reasonable.
Okay.
Great.
Sounds like a friends and family discount.
Any further discussion? All those in favor for approving Chuck's Electrical Service and a bid to not exceed $10,360, say aye. Aye. Opposed? There you go, Kip.
Thank you.
I think you got to stay. We got new truck purchases next. Is that, you going to go over that, or Steve, is that you?
You can go ahead, if you want.
Okay. This is some this is a housekeeping issue, I'm going to call it, just because, as you know, and I want to thank the council very much for approving the capital budget as you did for us. We've started on getting prices and purchases per that capital budget right away, because many of these are needs, not necessarily wants. The two trucks, George Jamar did all the legwork on this. I've got to give him the kudos on it, because while I was absent, he took care of all this. He did all the legwork, got the prices, found the trucks. These trucks were both purchased under a piggyback bid, whether it be through the state or another county or something to that effect. As it states here, the one truck is for the wastewater plant. That was an F-250 four-wheel drive pickup with a snowplow. The price came out to $43,761, which is under what the budgeted price was for that pickup. We kind of moved in a hurry, as you know. You received emails on this to get your approval individually for which we did. Reason being that that particular truck, as of January 15th, was the end of that procurement bid to be able to piggyback under that. So the price would have gone up. With that being said, the second truck for the streets department, that bid was priced at $75,000 was the quoted price in the capital budget. When we got looking around, it was hard to get the truck in that, so it was another say $1,000. It was $76,250, which we absorbed the extra out of our operating budget for it. But as I say, both trucks were purchased. They were approved by all of you, and we just want to make sure it's brought up publicly so that the public understands what we went through.
Good, I'm glad you were able to get them done. Thank you. Anything else on that? Anybody have any questions? All right. Thanks, Kip.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Next, moving forward, we're going to have a discussion on consent agendas. Carolyn, is this going to be you?
It is.
All right.
So at the last meeting, I kind of brought up a little bit real quick on requesting a discussion on the council's consideration to whether, you would like to move towards consent agendas. And the main purpose of consent agendas are time management. That is really the main purpose of it. However, in order to, well, first I'll start by, a consent agenda is more where you would group items that you would consider at one night under one agenda, and there would be one motion. So if we had 5 resolutions that you've talked about the previous 3 meetings, you've already had a public hearing, no one else really has any more discussion, they could all be grouped under one agenda item under the consent agenda with one motion. So that is one, that's one example of how you could use your consent agendas. There are some rules to look at when you're doing consent agendas. So one is to make sure that all the information is submitted to the council in advance in enough time for you guys to review. It's very, very, very important for the council to make sure they review it ahead of time before that meeting. And then there is always the option at the start of the meeting to say, I want to remove item number such and such off of the consent agenda, which could be discussed later on in the regular agenda. It could be discussed or tabled to another meeting, but that is brought up at the beginning. And then there's, when you're starting the consent agenda, it is good, the council should have the opportunity to ask any questions if they have more specific questions about those individual items. So one of the other things that I added on here is kind of a sample agenda of what it would look like if we were to move towards this. So it could be part of our regular agenda. There's the consent agenda, and what I've seen in other jurisdictions is they do put a kind of an explanation on how consent agendas work, so that when the public is looking at the agenda, they're understanding what that means. And then I kind of put a sample motion. So I used what we had on the agenda this time, and I highlighted the museum ordinance in there. So if someone were to make a motion to approve the consent agendas 1 through 4 with the exception of item 2, which means we would remove that from the overall motion. So one other item I did discuss, and Sharon may want to maybe explain this a little bit more, as I talked to Sharon about the council usually needs to adopt a rule of order to allow the use of consent agendas. The council doesn't really have rules of order. We have it in the charter, but it just says that you can determine your own rules of order and business. So I don't know if Sharon kind of wants to explain further about the best route if the council were to consider this.
Yeah, so, typically if you wanted to adopt rules of order, I would recommend you do that by resolution. So even though we're just looking at one particular rule and not a comprehensive set of rules, I think it still makes sense to do it by a resolution. You may in the future decide, now that there are 5 council members, you want to have more formal rules of procedure written out just so everyone knows how things are going to go. But it sounds like at this point, maybe just try this one first and then possibly in the future look to whether or not you need additional rules. I would recommend you do it by a resolution.
Okay.
So it does, and that one of the things I asked Sharon, because the charter talks about rules and order, I wasn't sure if it had to be a charter amendment or not, and she said no, just
Okay, just a resolution.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Anybody have any comments?
If we don't have any rules for anything else, why do we need a rule for this? Do we need a rule?
I think it makes sense to have something in writing so that everyone understands how this is going to work, especially since it's something new. I think it makes sense to do that. One of the things that I didn't see in the memo that I questioned, and I think is who decide what goes on the consent agenda. Typically that would maybe be your town manager would do that, or in consultation with the staff. But, it may be that council have some role in that, and that should be spelled out too.
Sure.
Maybe he consults the president about questions, or, maybe anyone can ask for it to be added, and certainly anyone can ask for it to be removed from it, so.
And I think as it goes on, things will be more routine, and then it won't be as clunky, right? Well, no, we don't ever want to put this kind of an ordinance in a consent agenda, yeah.
Right.
Well, and one of the items, actually, Steve and I talked about was minutes are a typical item that goes on the consent agenda. And I originally had that in my memo, and I said, I don't think I want that, because we do have amendments to our minutes, and I don't want that to be yep, let's just approve everything, when the minutes do sometimes have amendments so if there's an amendment to the minutes, it shouldn't be in the overall, if that makes sense.
And you don't have to have things on a consent agenda.
No,
I mean, you
you
could
don't.
say, we're going to go this whole,
Right.
time.
You might
not
have some
doing it.
meetings where you have nothing on a consent agenda.
Okay.
Right.
I think also in your memo, you do lay out what type of items.
Right.
It's very clear. I'm sure Sharon would agree, right? The types and then the best suited. It's pretty, I don't want to say, it's common sense in a way, right?
And at the beginning of any meeting, any council member can object to any or all items on the consent agenda, and then it would just go back to regular. Okay. Do you have any objection to having Sharon write up a resolution for this? Okay.
All right, sounds good.
That way we'll know who's reading their packets. All right, next we're moving on to Centerville Police Department 2020 year in review.
Good evening again. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to go over some of the information that the Centerville Police Department was called for or investigated. Kind of highlights what our year was like and gives me the opportunity to recognize the hard work and dedication of the members of the Centerville Police Department. Some notes of interest in your packets. We have exhibits that should run A through H. So I'll start quickly with Exhibit A. Uniformed officers from the Centerville Police Department conducted nearly 2,000 residential and commercial patrol checks and community policing assignments during 2020. These types of policing initiatives are crucial approach to proactive policing, which means that our mere presence hopes to deter a crime before it happens. That's the basis of policing. Exhibit B, our average call for service by day of the week was Wednesday. Exhibit C, our call for service time of the day range was between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. Exhibit D, our incident offense total month-to-month comparison, January and February 2020 accounted for nearly 23% of the criminal offenses during the calendar year of 2020. Exhibit E, 2020 traffic enforcement overview. The guys stopped nearly 2,000 total traffic violations in 2020. They averaged 166 traffic stops per month. October of last year was the busiest month of the calendar year for traffic enforcement, with a total of 272 total traffic stops. 1,227 of the 1999 were residents of Queen Anne's County. 737 of the 1999 traffic stops were residents of the town of Centerville. Of those 1,999 traffic stops, 1,723 motorists were issued warnings. 901 of the 1999 traffic stops occurred on 213. 847 were for speeding, which is one of the 3 leading causes of traffic fatalities in Maryland. Traffic violations by hour, our busiest time was between 1 and 2 p.m. Exhibit F gives an overview of our ASC automated speed enforcement school zone speed cameras. Currently, we have 2 traffic cameras deployed in 25-mile-per-hour school zones. There were 1,215 school zone citations issued for speed in 2020, 4,765 during the last 3 years. 1,086 school zone speeding citations were for 37 to 42 miles per hour in a 25-mile-per-hour speed zone. 5 citations were issued for 55 plus in a 25-mile-per-hour school zone. Our highest captured speed was on May 11th, 2020, where a vehicle was captured traveling 72 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour school zone. Exhibit G is our incident offense total, a 3-year comparison. Our officers investigated 210 complex criminal investigations in 2020, which was an 18.92% decrease from 2019, so that's kind of a good thing. Burglary, destruction of property, and theft under $1,000 and impaired driver incidents were below average for 2020. Exhibit H was our call for service 3-year comparison. We responded to 5,318 total calls for service in 2020, which was a 15.41% decrease from 2019. Though 2020 was an atypical year in many aspects, I'm grateful to the officers of the Centerville Police Department for their steadfast and devoted service to the citizens of Centerville. The data reflected within these reports will be highly beneficial for crime analysis and future deployment of police resources. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
How much of the fall off do you think is because of COVID-19? I mean, it seems to be at least related here. You've got the first 2 months sort of pre-quarantine, making up a quarter of all the crime calls for the year. I'm just curious what you think.
I think it's had a notable impact on both, on all aspects really, traffic, calls for service, and crimes. I know that statewide traffic enforcement initiatives and traffic enforcement is down statewide 25% from last year. So while it is an inconvenience, it has been helpful to us in law enforcement.
Thanks.
Anybody? Just a couple things I wanted to point out. You know, people are always complaining about speeding, and it just goes to show the vast majority it's us that are doing all of the speeding, right? It is good to see that the overwhelming majority of the speeders are at least at that lower level, but my goodness, when you have people that are speeding over 55 miles an hour. The other thing I wanted to point out is that if you look at the warnings, citations, and repair orders, I want everyone to understand that warnings are huge, right, compared to citations. The town does not get any revenue when there's a ticket that's written. In fact, it's kind of a double whammy, right? The money actually goes to the state, and one of our officers now has to spend time in court, right? I'm not saying we shouldn't write tickets, but it's not a revenue generator under any means. And in fact, I think that a warning, still the hassle, right? You're trying to get to work, and now you're hassled. You got to stop for 15 minutes, and you're going to be late. That's probably more of a deterrent. I mean, certainly a $150 ticket, it's a deterrent too, but that's as much of a deterrent as anything else. So.
It's our hope that our visibility alone, our high visibility, is a deterrent enough to reduce speed, because speeding, as I mentioned, is one of the top 3. Distracted driving and improper lane changing are the other 2 leading causes of fatalities, traffic fatalities in Maryland. My message is that we take enforcement action, and that could be a verbal warning or a written warning or additional steps as needed. But we hope to accomplish the message, especially in some of these school zones, that we really have to be mindful of what our speed is traveling through town.
And I will say that many years ago, MML, the Maryland Municipal League, tried to lobby the state to get a portion of that revenue to come back, and the General Assembly had zero interest in ever even discussing that.
Regarding speed cameras, you were looking into 2 more. What is the status, or are you going to report that out later?
No, I'd be happy to talk about it now. Our third ASE camera will be deployed in an area in Centerville that's already had a traffic study conducted. It's already been approved for deployment. The 2 cameras that we have now are movable or mobile, so that we can relocate them based on, typically what we do is we'll have, based on speed complaints or traffic analysis, we'll have an officer go out for several weeks and monitor the speed using their own speed instruments. And then the recommendation to the company to relocate that speed camera is followed by that. So we are ready to deploy in February a new 3rd camera, and we are conducting speed study at a potential fourth location within Centerville. And obviously, all that information as we get closer to deploying these resources will be made available to the council.
Thank you.
On personnel, this way,
That's fine.
how's Officer Claggett working out? I assume he's past his 8 hours or?
He is. He was on patrol today. In fact, they initiated a traffic stop and apprehended a driver who had a suspended license and had an open warrant. So they're doing a great job out there. The members of the department are highly motivated and ready to serve the citizens of Centerville.
And then I see, came across my email, is we have another one, Dustin Schultz, coming on board.
We are. We're hopefully moving forward with Mr. Schultz here in the very near future, and looking forward to bringing him on board as well.
So those two have fit into replacing the vacancies that we had.
Correct. That'll leave us one additional vacancy. Obviously, we're still accepting applications and looking at other potential candidates. And I will finally I'll kind of wrap here. I'm pleased to share with the council that the posting for the vacancy for the police department administrative assistant went live. We've received over 100 applications for that position. I've been working closely with Human Resources to vet the applications, and we're hoping to set up interviews in the very, very near future.
Excellent.
So we're grateful.
Excellent.
Very
Thanks,
grateful.
Chief. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for
All right, moving on, I have correspondence here. We received a letter from DNR that they're going to be doing some looking at the stream, and this is one of the properties that is over by Little Hut, it's over on Little Hut, I believe, right? Yeah. Next, we're going to go to reports of boards and commissions. Centerville Parks Advisory Board.
No updates as of right now. We'll be meeting the first week of February.
Under that, I was tasked to look into dog parks. And I thank Mike Whitehill for sending me the 15 sites. I've already looked through, and there's definitely, the top 7 look fantastic. So wherever we go, I think, and I'm going to look into that some more. Maybe ask Mike if he wants to join me. But also, I ran into some dog owners where there was some dogs playing in their yard in Symphony Village. And I already have an amended animal ordinance for Centerville. They've taken the one that was issued in March 2012 and amended it, updated it.
What's this ordinance? I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
I didn't hear what you said. You said there's an ordinance? You've got.
There is an animal ordinance that was issued back in March 2012.
Okay.
They looked into it and took into account if we do have a dog park, what might be suggested amendments to that ordinance.
Okay.
And also they drafted up a Centerville Dog Park rules and regulations. This was based on the current Kent Island Dog Park. So moving forward with that, I will keep the council aware, working with Steve, working with Mike, working with my honored councilwoman, that maybe we can work something out. And also, I want to, since the county, I believe, is operating the Kent Island one, that we might work, since we're considering that it's not a town, how should I say, facility or something, that maybe this might be an opportunity for a town-county partnership.
My understanding of the county one is that the county owns it, and if I'm wrong here, please tell me, the county owns it, but there's a nonprofit.
Right, and we would have the same thing.
Yeah.
But to set it up, it isn't just, turn a piece of print, you know what I mean. There has to be certain things like, I understand, talking with the people that are doing this, that the county one has like 5 or 6 parking spots, which isn't a great number. And you need to separate the big dogs from the small dogs and, all sorts of details that we're moving forward on. And I think it would be one of those things people would look forward to that. And it would be goodwill to within the town and the resounding county areas.
Great.
I know, Mike, it's in Carolyn's minutes, and I just wanted to follow up.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Centerville Economic Development Authority. I'm happy to talk on this one.
Yeah, I'm happy to let you talk. I had to miss the meeting earlier this week, but I understand maybe there's been some developments with CETA. We had, at the last meeting, talked about sort of empowering them to, for lack of a better turn of phrase, set the public record right on fiber optic and what could be expected and what shouldn't be expected and what the town's responsibility was. But there's been some turnover with Nick Rowden as chairperson, who has resigned effective, I guess last week. But I'll let you fill in the. Yeah,
so I was there, and Paige was there as well. And Paige, maybe you could come up and if I need to ask you some questions, we can kind of go through it. They haven't had a quorum in over a year. Obviously, the COVID has had a lot to do with it, but I think that they've had some issues with getting attendance and just getting members who are interested in coming. So Paige was able to lead the meeting the other night, and Paige, do you want to just kind of give a quick, just, to the council, what kind of we do have a memorandum here. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read that or not, but, basically that the end result was that possibly suspending operations of CETA at this point. There were two members that were there. Joe is one of those, and he's in the audience here. And both members who were there expressed an interest in continuing on, but I just don't know if I don't believe CETA is sustainable in its present form. There were two members, plus myself, and 5 paid staff, and that's how it's been for many a long time.
Yeah. I think that everyone has the interest of CETA at heart, and certainly CETA has a role to play in interfacing with you as the town council to support the business development of the town of Centerville. But right now we have a lot going against us with the vacancies and lack of a chair and lack of participation and COVID. And so I don't know if it's a technical question that our lawyer can help us with at town as to whether we can just suspend the operation to a future date and set up an ad hoc committee of those people who are interested that would not require meeting minutes, would not require paid staff other than the economic development person and those who were interested to attend these meetings, and that we could continue to meet and to vet interest and to work with you all on issues that you have identified as important.
Okay. Sharon, do you have any recommendations about the cleanest way to kind of abandon or suspend?
Before we consider that, I apologize in that I didn't analyze or look at who is on CETA, because I assume Steve had been doing that as he is the liaison. But somebody mentioned to me, and I walk around town and talk to business owners and stuff, the makeup of CETA, while they might be business owners, somebody said there are a lot of them, and probably possibly why a quorum wasn't being obtained was because many of the business owners were from out of town. Was that,
So CETA is made up of several individuals. This is one of the unique boards that does not require membership, does not require residency within the town.
Understand. Yes.
So there are a few seats, there's 9 seats total, I think. There are a few of those seats that can be filled with people who are out of town. I will tell you that the person who lives the furthest away in Crofton is the person who attends most frequently. I mean, almost every single time, right?
And that person is?
That's Davis Emery.
Okay.
So
right.
he was an original member,
right?
And he has been to almost every single meeting, and he comes the furthest away.
And he's the only business person, business owner on the board who doesn't live in Centerville.
Oh, yeah.
That's completely.
Okay, I'm just, you know how you talk to people, and I just want to make sure I have my facts straight. And I have been, in my short time as being a council member, I am sure Steve has been diving into it since he's the liaison. So I've been, I was a little concerned that we were potentially considering suspending CETA or whatever action is going to be done. In that I think, I know, I'm going to quote Steve again. He says we need to look to the future, whether it's 1, 3, 5-year plan, strategic plan. And I think in economic development, we should be looking out that way, especially since there are a lot of opportunities for residential and business development in the town in the next year or two. Correct?
Absolutely.
So I'm just, if we're going to say we're going to suspend it, I don't want to suspend it indefinitely without a date. Like, okay, I can understand now that we're in the middle of a pandemic, well, that's affecting attendance. I'd like to maybe be optimistic and say that by June, everybody's going to be vaccinated and we can bring CETA back online. I'm just making that suggestion.
If I could.
Go ahead.
I appreciate being so quotable, but CETA suffers from a lack of mission statement, and I think that it is beholden to the town council to determine what that mission statement needs to be, because I don't think, having attended a couple of work sessions, I guess they were now, and having a few conversations with Nick, the recently resigned chairman, getting together and talking about what you might want to see at a certain place in town, or what business we could have in town, or we benefit from having in town. I don't think it's a good use of people's time, and you're asking town staff to be there after hours. In this case, it sounds like a number of paid staff, and so I agree. I think let's talk about picking this back up again, sort of post-pandemic, but it's got to be something other than sort of general economic debate, right? Because it's just not going anywhere, and I'll leave it at that. I guess it's up to us to determine what we want Centerville. I mean, they're an advisory board. What do we want them to advise us on? Because I think coming in and saying you want a sushi restaurant, I don't think is a very good use of anybody's time.
No, I mean, Paige is our economic development.
Yeah.
Correct? And I was pleased to see that Heather attended, and that I think this could be an opportunity, and I firmly believe that the town is not an island by itself. And in economic development, I am very pleased to see that the county economic development, whatever her title is, director, is interacting with Paige and therefore with us in this whole arena. And I think the big picture is we're a county and we just so happen to be an incorporated town, right? Is that correct? And I think it's important if the business community is not two separate entities. It isn't town of Centerville business. It's not Queen Anne's County. And I talked to the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and she expressed an interest that she would like to see more, if you want to say in the future, participation with the town, with the chamber, with Heather in this case now. She's the new county economic development director. I'm just discussing this whole issue in that I think it's important for the vitality and the potential tax base of the town.
I totally agree. And I would say that the county has been very helpful in partnering with the town. And Pete, you had that job previously, right? And so the county has always been helpful, whether it's throwing, opportunities our way or just coming, right? I will tell you that at that meeting the other night, I was embarrassed because we have not been able to get a quorum together. It's not just because of COVID, it's a long time ago, right? And the county is sending their economic development director at a 7 o'clock meeting or 6 o'clock meeting on a Monday night or Tuesday night, whatever night it was, right? if I had to make a report back to the county, I'd be like, these guys don't have their act together. Like, I'm not going to come anymore, right? So I think that I agree that CETA is floundering for lack of vision, right? When CETA was put together, we really didn't have any formal economic development resources or focus in town. We had started a Main Street program, and that was kind of going, but that was very focused just on Main Street. The purpose of starting CETA was to get a town-wide economic development, and the first thing they did was they came up with a survey and an economic development plan, and they presented it to the council, and that was awesome, right? And ever since they kind of presented that plan, they've just kind of been spinning their wheels, and they don't really know what they want to do and how they want to do it. In the meantime, we've got a Main Street manager that's doing fantastic. We've now got an economic development manager that's doing fantastic. We're in a weird time because of COVID, right? I mean, I totally get that, but I think that the paid staff that we have are really doing well in focusing in on and hopefully executing those plans. The advantage of having an ad hoc group is you're not going to have 5 paid staff, and they could, the council could kind of give direction. Hey, we'd like you to focus on this, or you could take the direction and say, we think this is an important thing, right? I had mentioned the other night when I was in the meeting, before I was on the council, I was a member of the Environmental Advisory Group, and that was an ad hoc committee, a couple of citizens, and we helped write legislation that we presented to the council. And we had no authority, but we presented it to the council for the tree canopy, and that helped to get the tree ordinance in place to then help us get Arbor Day Foundation and then become a Tree City USA. So I think there's a lot of nimble things that an ad hoc group can do. And while I think CETA at some point in the future is an important one, I think as it is today, it's not functional. Let's see if an ad hoc group gets together, see if you guys can figure something out. And then that would give the council at some point in the future an ability to write a new ordinance or modify the existing ordinance to say, here's where we really want you guys to focus.
And I would just say, anybody who's complaining in the streets about CETA that sounds like a pretty good person for the ad hoc committee.
I'm not saying they're complaining. I'm saying hi, I got a big sign that says I'm town council, all right? So they talk to me about everything, Steve. I'm sure if when I'm in town, right?
Those are the people that I say, put in an application and.
That's what I agree with you.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when you come into town.
Yeah. Sharon, I'm sorry, Jeff.
Write your name down and bring it in.
Yeah.
Sharon, can you give us a little something here?
Yeah, I think, if you want to just temporarily suspend CETA, they don't have prescribed meetings of how often they have to meet. You just don't call a meeting for a while if it's just going to be a temporary thing. If it's going to be longer than that, you may want to repeal this section. You could always add it back in later. So it just depends on if this is, let's get through COVID and look at it this summer, then it probably doesn't make sense to go through the effort to change the ordinance at this time. But if you do think, I'm not sure we even need CETA, let's just get rid of it. And then if we can always bring it back and kind of reimagine it in the future. So it just depends on how long you feel this is going to be.
It sounds like that's where we're going or something.
I'm committed to economic development, but I also think that CETA has I'd really rather see the council. That's been kind of the whole problem is like, okay, CETA's trying to figure out what they want to do. The council hasn't really given any direction. Their mission and their goals are kind of, I believe they're outdated. And I'd just like to get rid of them, repeal the whole thing. That's my opinion, right? So.
Well, I don't think we're prepared to do that tonight.
No,
so
absolutely.
I think
but this
does make sense, I think, to just perhaps put the meetings on hold. I think that's a perfectly fine idea, see what happens. And I would just say, CETA needs new members, right? If it's going to be sort of recharged and re-envisioned, it needs new members. I just feel pretty strongly about that. It's hard to keep volunteers engaged. Certainly appreciate Joe coming out to the meeting on Tuesday, but it's just difficult to do, and I think we're going to have to find new folks if we want to re-envision this. I don't think there's any substitute for that.
Yep, okay.
I'd like to thank everybody for this discussion. These type of discussions are important for us to serve the citizens of Centerville.
All right, moving on, Queen Anne's County Council of Governments, any updates there? Thanks, Paige.
No meeting. Believe we're going to have one February 10th. No.
No, February's meeting is canceled.
Oh, March, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It's canceled.
so March 10th,
March
it will
10th,
be
I'm sorry, I had it
a
wrong.
meeting with the county, and it will be on the tax set-off. So there will only, in the past, the towns have met with the county twice, once during COG for tax set-off, tax differential, and then again, usually like the next night, to go over the same thing individually. Those individual meetings won't happen. It will only be during COG on March
23rd.
10th, I think it is.
You just said that, I thought. You said March 10th.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, during council roundtable, I'm gonna talk a little bit about tax differential. Okay. All right, Centerville Planning Commission, we had a meeting, I guess, last night, and they went through this ordinance. They also are the ordinance that we tabled. They also are looking at pole barn ordinance that they're working on. In addition, we sat the new member, Tim Zuella. He was able to participate as well. We are still looking for 2 alternates. And they've ramped up their work session meetings so that they're going to now start to have more work sessions to work on the comprehensive plan. So that's everything I had on that. Maryland Municipal League.
Yes, I've enjoyed attending that virtual conference that they had. And I've been in contact with Tom Reynolds, our alumni, who's the director of it. And he just got back to me, in fact, today. He said, we encourage you to get active with the league by signing up for one of our committees, connecting with the Eastern Shore chapter, and or participating in one of, the conferences. So, making progress and getting in with that community, which, as Tim well knows, it's a very good organization, not just for me as a council member, but as for the town.
Great.
Because they have a lot of resources available to us.
Thank you. Moving forward to report of department heads, town manager.
Yep, I've been working on a lease agreement, also was involved in some inspections out to Northbrook in the Phase 3 construction of those streets out there, and also just the normal zoning matters and building permits.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Chief of Police, Chief, you have anything else you wanted to add?
I yield my time, sir.
Okay. Town Attorney? All right. Director of Public Works?
Uh-oh.
Just to update, bring you up to speed on a few things, so I'll try to be quick with it. Okay, as you folks know, we had an unfortunate incident where our backhoe caught on fire.
Yes.
The backhoe is a total loss. The claim has been filed for it, and that's about all I can tell you about that part. As far as a replacement for it, I just want to inform you, don't be surprised if we come back with a different option than the backhoe. This would follow with what we had in our 5-year budget plan. But at this time, till we figure out how the claim is going to work and which way things are going to go, I just wanted to bring you up to speed with that. We're working on a few customers. Of course, everybody got their water bills this month and everything. So we're working, trying to go through, we had a few customers that have called with concerns of high water uses and explaining there's no way that they could have used that much water. There's only one person or 2 people in the house, those kind of things. I just want everybody to understand that how these water meters work. The water flows through it. There's a given size cavity to it. Water meters will either slow down or stop working. There's no physical possible way for a water meter to speed up and read more gallons than what will go through it. That's a hard thing to make people understand, that once it goes through that meter, it's the customer's side and it's their responsibility, whether it's a leak outside the house, inside the house, whatever. The other thing is, with the meters and the technology in the meters and the meters we have today, we have the ability to go back and pull a data log, which will give us back as far as 90 days, and on some of the newer meters, we can go beyond 90 days now, and we can pull the record of how many gallons went through that meter on any one of those days. We can also drill down further than that, and we can see how much water we used by the hour on those days. So we can tell the customer that, you know, looking through here, you've used, for argument's sake, 50 to 70 gallons a day for X number of days, and then on this date at 6 p.m., you all of a sudden shut up and you've used, whether it's 200, 300, 400 gallons or more, you know, for a given period starting at 6 o'clock. The other thing people don't understand is that when they see that they've used 4,000 gallons in a day, or however many gallons in a given period, and you do the math on it and figure out that that comes down to like 2.5 or 3 gallons a minute. Faucets are 2.5 gallons a minute, and that's the new low flow, unless you get the ultra low flow faucet. Toilets, especially older toilets, if the flapper hangs up, it doesn't even have to be the flapper hanging up, it could just be the ball cock is stuck. Older toilets will flow anywhere from 3 to 4 gallons a minute through it. So you start adding that up over a 24-hour period, a 48-hour period, see how many gallons have gone through it, and that blows people's water meters away. So with that being said, that's what we're looking into with some things like this. We just ask that people be patient, because we're not only grabbing the material and the information from the quarter that the bill came from, but we're also looking days after that. So we may go as much as a week, 3 different times, and recheck that meter to see how much, if it's an ongoing problem, if it's a certain day that it's happened. One, for instance, I had a person, one of the customers that I talked with some time ago, said same thing. We couldn't have used that much water. I pulled the data log up, and I said, on Mondays, on Wednesdays, and on Thursdays, this is what's going on. These are your high usage days. Oh yeah, well, we do the laundry that day. We have the cleaning company come in this day. I said, that's where your water's going. It's not always just because you flushed the toilet or ran a sink or did a wash.
I'd like to thank Linda for her email that she sent out, where I didn't even realize that that was possible, so to speak, and that it was very enlightening of the data that was provided and what Kip is saying now. And it could go a long way to reducing people's misconception, you know, with us and water and sewer. And with this data, is there a possibility, an opportunity that we could have that available to people, you know, type in and go, oh, this is my water meter 10-2200 or something. And they could monitor it themselves so that they could see, and then not be totally surprised come, I'm just asking that, that's all.
The technology is there.
Right.
And Tim can tell you for probably the past, I was going to say 5 years, but the way my memory is, it's probably closer to 7 years that we've been working to upgrade the system, and that's the point where we're trying to get to. We're not there yet. We have the information and everything, The thing is that until we can get all the meters changed out to that,
Right, so we're not picking out that Tim gets a reading and Shelby doesn't.
it's more that Tim's, for argument's sake,
I'm
whether
just saying.
Tim or somebody else's, all the meters have to be brought up to speed. And we have many meters out there. That's why you'll see in the capital budget, my meter expense for the year, and $50,000 is a lot of money. I don't care how fast you say it or anything, but $100,000 is what it's going to take, 100 plus, to get all the meters in town caught up. So we've been trying to do so many meters a year in that 50,000. The problem is you have so many meters out there, and you have Symphony Village and Northbrook that were all built at about the same time, that those meters are starting to come up on the time that they're failing, they're out of their useful age and, serviceability. So, as we think we're catching up to the ones that are having to be replaced also, so.
So Kip, is it my understanding as well that, kind of to Bob's point, ultimately, and the software is out there, that it can send you an alert and saying, hey, 2 a.m, you were using all this water. Is that unusual? Is that correct or not?
We have.
Not that we're anywhere near that yet.
We're not near that, but yes, the technology is there, the software is there, that it can, once we get it all up, 100% working right, you can set limits, and it'll flag accounts that go beyond that limit. So the first step is it would notify somebody like Linda or one of our other staff. They would see the flag first thing in the morning. They could contact that customer and say, your account was flagged because of this. Your water usage was flagged because you're using this much water. We just want to check. The next step beyond that is the point where, like Bob was saying, where they could go online, put in their account number and a password, and bring up their own version of the data log and see what they flowed over the X number of hours, days, or whatever.
I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I want to volunteer to work with you to put together a one-pager that we can send out with the next water bill, maybe, that explains that this is the way it is, and your town is striving to get to X, Y, Z. It might be, I'm looking at the positive nature of that outreach to because that sounds like it's the biggest issue here in the town. It upsets, I'll say, more people than any other subject. So I would like to sit down, I'm volunteering that if you let me come into your office and I can work with you to put together something. You just verbally stated all this. Mm-hmm. I'd like to help you shape that and, work with my council members and make sure Steve and our lawyer, you got to make sure it's all right. So we're not giving them false impressions or something. But I think that would go a long way. So when we walk down the streets or I'm walking in Symphony Village, somebody doesn't, my water bill, and like you're saying, it's going to get worse now with Northbrook and Symphony Village. So if we got to tell our communities, our citizens, hey, this is the way it is. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to do right by you. You're paying taxes.
I'm game for whatever we can come up with
so would you accept me working with you to do something like that?
Yep. Anytime.
Okay. Steve, is that okay?
Kip, anything else?
And yes, that's it. And again, thank you for the purchase of the trucks. I want to thank the council for all they've done for not just Public Works, but all the departments.
All right.
They appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Town Clerk.
Just really quick, Main Street received word that they will be funded for the, what they call the SERI grant, the Maryland Strong Economic Recovery Initiative. They were hoping to get additional money from the governor to put towards the Main Street programs. There were, they had $5 million to spend. There was $13 million in ask from all the Main Streets. So it will be divided up among all the Main Streets based on a percentage of their ask. So we're hoping by early next week we'll find out exactly how much, and that is to give micro loan or micro grants to our businesses. It is restricted to our 8-block area, the Main Street area, because it is a grant through Main Street. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Can you hear? Can you let us know?
Citizens Forum, number 2. Anybody want to come up and say 3 minutes? All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to Council Roundtable. Councilmember Anania.
Nothing to talk about.
All right, Councilmember Keel.
Just got one thing, I guess it's the bulletin board down to Millstream Park, the one out by the entrance. It looks like a piece of plywood to me.
It is.
Can we get some paint on it or something? It looks a little rough. Another thing, I ride past it a lot, and I said, of course, my better half said, can you, can we get something done with that? And I said, I can bring it up. I said, a quick coat of paint shouldn't cost too much.
I will donate the paint if you donate the labor.
I'll do it.
There we go, another volunteer.
So you know as well, we do have a Boy Scout who is looking at an Eagle Scout project, and the project would be to replace that with telephone pole, not telephone poles, but it would be a little bit larger, and it would be able to be seen from both directions. So
very cool.
I do think that it needs some paint, so that's great. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, Councilmember Hardy.
The latest on vaccines. In Symphony Village, we've been putting together kind of a poll of who would be interested. And we have over half the community has already expressed interest that if the county comes in, we will en masse right there in Symphony Village. But more important, our wonderful Baltimore Sun had an article on Wednesday. Counties urge patience as vaccine requests soar. And I know within my community, and I'm sure all the other communities around the town, our Department of Health has done a great job, both getting testing and now getting vaccines going. And they have a form out there for everybody to fill out, a form of interest. Also currently in talking with Beth Belaski, the PIO, she says their priority is citizens over the age of 75. And with the waffling of the Board of Ed, they're currently targeting teachers over the age of 65. And the word patience is the very operative word, that they want to do it. All the counties want to do it. All states across the country want to do it. It's the availability of the vaccines themselves and then having personnel to put that vaccine in the arms. So if anybody wants to read it, I would suggest you go. It's a very good article. I'm going to be summarizing it and hopefully working with the Department of Health to get it out to through the Homeowners Association in Symphony Village. But it's an interest item of high priority to our citizens. But patience.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Vice President Klein.
I don't have anything to say.
All right, I just got a couple of quick things. Number one, I want to apologize to the council members. Last meeting, we had all these swearings in, and I was giving out trophies, and I apologize. I was down there getting all the glory myself, so I really should have figured out a way to get everybody in there, so it won't happen again. I apologize for that.
Yeah, we know you're a glory.
Number two, I'm going to make a presentation next meeting on the tax differential. As Callan had mentioned, we do have this meeting that's coming up, and I think it's important that all the council members understand the history of that, how it worked, what I think we're going to be looking for, and what I think our strategy should be. Not that it's a secret strategy, but our strategy should be when we go in and have those conversations. So that'll be on the agenda next meeting. I don't have anything else. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.